So Wade Swikle,
Yep.
two college brothers
Moving and storage.
moving in
Yep.
storage. Welcome, man.
Thank you.
I'm excited to kind of pick your brain and chat with you about your business, kind of what you do, um, and like we were just talking about, like the franchise piece of your business too. I think that'll be cool to kind of dive into. But why don't we start with just kind of what is two college brothers moving in storage, and what do you guys do there?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a full service moving company, started up in Gainesville, Florida about 13 years ago. I was a student at the University of Florida. Two College Brothers was actually started by two other students at the University of Florida. And I had started a competing company actually in 2012. They started in 2010. And we competed against each other for 2 summers, kind of focusing on the student market, helping kids move, but also residential moves throughout the year because students only really move in the summertime.
Yeah.
And, I'd kind of looked up to this company. I'd kept one of their flyers on my desk. I thought they had a really good branding and they were trying to open other locations across the state. And I thought that was really cool. And so I was kind of trying to be like them until one day I got a phone call from one of the brothers and they wanted to sell the business and
Mm,
go do other things. And I was, having a lot of fun. I just graduated at that point and wanted to kind of continue to grow the business and pursue it more. So we worked out a deal, bought it, thought for a while I was going to run the two companies side by side, two
yeah.
college brothers for like the college student stuff. And then my company was called Smarter Moving Solutions. And I thought that was going to be more of like the residential and commercial side. But then I quickly realized that running two competing brands against each other was not a great idea because it was two sets of uniforms, two different types of trucks, two different websites, like everything, was different. So
Yeah.
I decided to just do it all under the one brand, Two College Brothers. They'd been around a little bit longer, but they had a more polished brand, and I'd always wanted to franchise the company. So I thought it made more sense to just embrace that brand and go with
Mhm.
it. And
Mhm.
so basically closed down the other locations that they had. They weren't really viable. They kind of were just like student ambassadors renting trucks and getting their friends to help move in like Tallahassee and Orlando, and just focused on Gainesville for a couple of years, and then opened up a location in Tampa once I felt like we were ready to expand. And Tampa took a little while to break into. There was a lot of competition,
Mhm.
and I at that point still didn't really quite know what I was doing. But after a few years of basically bouncing back and forth between the two locations, Tampa really did start to take off, and we kind of finally got to cruising altitude down in the Tampa Bay area. And we ended up moving our headquarters to Tampa in 2020, like right after the start of the pandemic. We got
Oh,
a
wow.
big warehouse. Yeah, and got into the storage game a lot more. So we do warehouse vaulted storage, and we still have the Gainesville location. We actually just sold that location as a franchise, so that's now independently owned and operated. But we have a centralized virtual sales center in Tampa that books moves for both locations. Gainesville does actually have its own salesperson too, so they can go out and do the on-site estimates. They can do some of the sales as well.
Mhm.
Basically, we have the virtual sales center so that they don't miss phone calls and leads. So,
Mhm.
like we have some back end support there, and then we handle our customer service through our headquarters as well for both locations, and basically laying the groundwork to sell more franchises. So
Yeah.
those are both pieces of support that we'll be able to offer franchisees, along with the systems and processes we've developed over basically 13 years. A lot of that one-on-one coaching and guidance to ensure the success of our franchisees so that we can, make them successful, because if they're successful, then the franchise entity is
Mhm.
successful. And the more brand presence we have across the state of Florida, which is kind of where we're focusing our efforts on in the beginning, the more it'll lift everybody up because we'll have more brand leverage, more marketing leverage, and then more trucks driving around the different cities across the state that'll
Mhm.
just help raise awareness of the name.
Yeah, I like that. So let's go back to the beginning and
Sure.
your like starting in the business. Like, what did you get your degree in? Like, did you ever like want to be a business owner? Was this the plan like all along was to start a business?
Yeah, I had always wanted to be a business owner,
Yeah.
all the way back to probably high school. I had read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Ugh,
and
yeah.
that kind of changed my whole perspective on working for somebody else versus going into business for myself. And so I had always had that in the back of my head that that's what I wanted to do. But
Mhm.
the process was to go to college. All my friends were going to college. My parents went to
Yeah.
college. That was kind of mandatory. And I was playing baseball at the time, and I actually played a little baseball in college. So that was, you know, that was the path that I was on, and I was really into like communications, radio, TV. I thought I wanted to be a sports broadcaster or host some kind of like an entertainment show. So I actually got my undergrad degree at University of Florida in telecommunications from
Okay.
the broadcast journalism school, and I kind of got burnt out on that. Like midway through that program, I was like, all right, well, I'll just go ahead and finish it. And I applied for a master's degree in entrepreneurship, which was a relatively new program at the time. And that was about when I started my original moving company. Was when I was starting that program. So completed that, and just decided to embrace what I had gone to school for. And I think I learned a lot more actually running a business than I
Yeah.
learned in that program. But it was a good foundation, and it kind of gave me an excuse to be a college student for another year. So that was
Yeah.
fun.
In Gainesville, which is always fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you, well, one that you brought up like Rich Dad Poor Dad, like that was one of the first books that I read that kind of changed my mindset and like got me into real estate as well, right? Like
Mm,
I think that's such a great book to, um, just like open up your mind into a different way of thinking, right? Because I think you're probably similar age to me, but our parents' generation, like they grew up, it's like you work your 9 to 5 or you go to school, right? You get your college degree, you work your 9 to 5, you save for retirement, and then you retire at 65, and that's a good life, whatever.
mhm.
But, there's a completely different way of thinking, and that works, right? So, and that same thing, like it just opened up my mind to that different way of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my mom or somebody had rented that book from the local library, and it was
Oh,
just,
yeah.
I don't know if anybody else actually read it, but it was sitting on our coffee table, and I just picked it up one day,
Crazy.
and yeah, I got read it cover to cover.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally changed everything.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what about, like, how did you get into the moving business? Like, why did you wanna start that? And, like, what was those first couple years like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of in between like summertime, in between semesters, I was back home. I'm from the Venice, Sarasota area, and I needed a summer job, and it was 2009, 2010, and there just weren't a lot of places that were hiring at the time. We were right in the middle of the recession. You had people with master's degrees waiting tables.
Mhm.
So I was, I didn't really have much work experience aside from just, typical high school jobs, delivering pizzas and,
Mhm.
stuff like that. So my dad was like, you got to get a job. Or we're not going to keep paying for your fun that you're having in college. And so I was like, all right. So I probably submitted applications to like 30 places, and didn't get a call back. And so, just had to start figuring something else out on my own. My dad had a job lined up for me at like a department store at the mall that I really didn't want to do. Like I wanted a cool job, like something that
Yeah.
would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, I gotta figure something out here. Like let's just see what happens. So I posted some ads on Craigslist saying I was a college athlete looking for any kind of general labor. And I got all kinds of strange calls, but I had a pickup truck, and I had, the ability to work with my hands and be active. So I started doing stuff like mowing lawns, and I was helping like a carpet cleaner, like clean carpets, just holding the hose for him as he went room to room. I was working part time, like for a handyman, just holding the bucket of screws for him while he was fixing
Mhm.
garage doors or whatever he was doing. But I also was starting to get a lot of calls to help people load and unload U-Haul trucks. And I actually liked those jobs more than all the other things. Like I was active, time went by quick. It was a good workout. I got to see all kinds of, cool houses and meet cool people all across, all across the Sarasota area, and it paid better than the other jobs too.
Mm.
And usually people would buy me lunch, and they'd give me a tip at the end, and I could pick my own schedule when I wanted to go to a job and when I was, uh, you know, wanting to go to the beach or have fun, do something else.
Mhm.
So it was, I think I made a few $1,000s that summer, kind of just having fun with my own little business, and it kind of got the wheels turning when I went back to college, and I was like, this is actually pretty good gig. Like, picking my own schedule just to help people unload boxes. So I got some of my friends. I was getting requests, do you have anybody that can help you? And I was like, oh yeah, let me ask around. So I got
Mhm.
my friends to help. I got my brother to help. And it kind of started to turn into this little business. And so I was like, you know what, maybe I should try to pursue this a little bit. So I had tried to get it started before 2012 in college, with a city business license. And I thought that was all I needed. And then I got approached by another moving company owner that had actually recently just gotten in trouble for operating without a license as a moving company. And I was starting to kind of advertise myself as a moving
Okay.
service.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You can't operate a moving company without a license." He's like, "If you keep posting these job ads," because he's also like posting on Craigslist and stuff too, and that's really all I was posting on. And he's like, "If you keep doing that, then I'm going to report you for being a moving company without a license." And I'm just like this college kid with a pickup truck. Like
Yeah.
I'm not like a moving company, but I guess I was providing moving services.
Right.
So I looked into it. Like, what do I need to do to get a license? Okay, I need to get like business insurance, and I'm like 20, 21 years old at the time, and like I'm like walking into these insurance agencies, like, "Hey, can I get moving insurance?" And they just they laughed me out the door, and I finally found somewhere that would do it, and I had like $600 in the pickup truck to my name, and that was about what the deposit was for the insurance that I
Wow.
needed,
Yeah.
and basically just got the insurance, applied for the license. A few weeks later, got that back in the mail, and I was legit. So I'd done a little work for that other company that was trying to shut me down. He's like, "You can come work for me, and I'll pay you $15 an hour," which is what I was charging customers to
Oh, okay.
basically just
Yeah.
do this labor. I was like, "Okay, well, if I don't have to deal with the stress, I'll come work, do that." But then I realized like he's making like $150 an hour to basically, pay me 15. And I was like, huh. It was like all cash, like all on the table. It was like a unmarked pickup truck towing an unmarked trailer. I was like, man, this is all I need to do is get a license and I can be making $150 an hour.
Yeah.
Like,
And
let's
at
see.
this point, like, had you already read the Rich Dad Poor Dad? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
so
was probably a few years prior that I had read
okay.
that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm in this master's degree program
Yeah.
now. Like,
Okay.
now that I have this license, so like all the kids in my class were like trying to start like these sexy apps and
Sure.
these cool like trendy type businesses,
Yeah.
and I'm like trying to start a moving company.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, why are you in a master's program to start a moving company? And I was
Sure.
like, well, I don't have any other real business background, and I also just wanted to stay in college for another year. So
Yeah.
I was like floating a lot of the stuff like with my student loan money for my business. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but anyway, I mean, it worked out, and
Yep.
yeah. So that the early days were just a lot of just figuring it out, like getting my friends to help out. I eventually got a trailer for my truck. I put a, logo on it. Eventually we got moving trucks, uh, bought out that other company and just kind of continued to add to our fleet. And it was
Mhm.
always just kind of like one step forward, two steps back, or two
Mm.
steps forward, one step back. Like
Mhm.
every time we think we had a breakthrough, like a truck would break down, or
Mhm.
there would be a damaged piece of furniture, or an employee would call out, so those first several years were definitely a struggle. Like we were growing, but it was stressful because I didn't know really. I was figuring it out as I went. There weren't really any resources for moving companies specifically at that time.
Like how to grow a business, like how to operate a moving business.
Right.
Yeah.
Like today there's a lot more resources for a moving company starting out, but back then, I mean this was like 10 years ago, there just weren't a lot of,
Mhm.
because all the people in the moving industry were, these dinosaurs, these van lines that
Mhm.
they kind of dominated it for a while, and just a lot of old school practices and techniques. And these companies used to rely heavily on the yellow pages to bring in new business, and that went away. And they didn't have to worry about Google reviews and all that, so their service, kind of sucked.
Mhm.
And I just saw that opportunity there, to provide a good service, to use the internet for our marketing, and so I just learned as much as I could about all that, and I started to pick up the phone and just call other moving company owners that I would find on Google that I thought looked like they had cool businesses, and have conversations with them about what their secrets to success were. And that eventually led to starting my podcast, the Grow Your Moving Company podcast.
Mhm.
I was like, this is like golden information that I'm
Yeah.
getting here, and these people are just totally open about it. And so basically started recording those conversations, obviously, with their permission, and that's how the Grow Your Moving Company podcast that I still host today was born. It was the only podcast like that at the time, and it's currently the active or the longest actively running moving company specific podcast. And I've had
Cool.
some really cool guests on that. So
Yeah.
be it, it's been a great learning experience for me. I didn't really know what my objective with having that podcast was
Sure.
in the beginning. I just thought it would open up some opportunities. And it's opened up a lot of opportunities, just not only just from learning and being having an excuse to meet these highly successful, business leaders, but now we have some like sponsorships on that podcast, and it's allowed me. It actually is what attracted our first franchisee, and
Oh,
we're
cool.
hoping to convert more moving company owners to franchisees through that. We've started a mastermind retreat business called Moving Titan Retreats, which is where we bring moving company owners from around the world together for a 3-day event several times throughout the year. And we all stay together. We're doing our next one in September. We're at a resort where, it's all inclusive, and bring in speakers and have like, a workshop, breakout
Hmm.
groups. We have entertainment and fun stuff too. So that's a little side business that we've gotten into, but it's that mentorship and that mastermind effect of learning from all these people that are in all different markets,
Yeah.
all different sizes. Figuring out what are they doing, what technology are they using, like how are they training people, like what are the roadblocks they're having, what are the marketing things that are working for them. So that's been huge, just kind of surrounding ourselves. And I have a partner on the retreat business who owns a moving company down in Venice, actually,
Okay.
and we're basically just trying to surround ourselves with super successful people and that's been huge in our growth, because we're able to hold each other accountable. It's just inspiring when we're around these people,
Yeah.
and keeps us hungry because we want to get to their level.
Yeah.
And then just the learning aspect and the accountability aspect, because we see these companies all the time and follow them and their journey, and we want to keep up. So
Yeah.
so that's been
That's
really
pretty
cool too.
cool. Like I think a lot of business owners could learn from that, right? And like there's so much we can learn from other people. And even though they may be competition, like obviously like some of these people are your competition, right? Um to some degree, but there's so much you can learn from them. And there's, you have that abundance mindset where there's plenty of business for everyone to kind of go around, and
Hmm.
you're just helping each other improve your business.
Exactly. And like you said, a mentality of abundance. Like
Yeah,
we've had local companies from Tampa Bay come to our retreats. And I think sometimes your competition can be your best referral partner,
sure.
because in the moving industry, like people all tend to move at the same time throughout the year. So like you might book up and be able to pass a lead to them because you trust them and you're still
Mhm.
helping that customer out. And then they return the favor a lot of the times, where they'll send you a lead that if they book up, you can, work with them on that. Or sometimes there's huge commercial projects that maybe they don't have the capacity to handle by themselves. So you'll
Yeah.
team up with them to be able to take a big commercial project. So yeah, I mean, it's I have no problem talking to our competitors, and
Mhm.
some people, some competitors aren't as open to it.
Sure.
They want to keep their cards close to their chest, but I don't think there's any real secrets to
Mhm.
success. It's all about the execution.
Yes.
And
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you might as well just share your ideas with each other, because they're probably going to have some stuff that they can give you and you can give them, and who can execute it better at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So, you're, like, all in on the moving business, which is I think is pretty cool because it's like you said, like, you had classmates and stuff that were doing something that was sexy and trying to create this cool app or whatever, this trendy app, but you've created something that's super successful, and now you're trying to franchise it and everything. How long do you think that it took you before, like, from starting the business, where it was just you and your truck, to, like, you're like, "Okay, I think I have a good handle on, like, how to run this business or, like, what I'm doing to grow it," and that sort of stuff? Like, how many years do you think that took you?
yeah, it took too long. I wish I knew then what I knew now, because it would have been expedited. But probably 7 or 8 years before I felt
Yeah.
like I had a good handle on things. But part of what we offer with the franchise is $1 million guarantee. So if they follow our formula and our marketing strategy, then we guarantee they'll get to an annual or let's say a 12-month annual $1 million in revenue in their first 3 years, or we'll refund their franchise fee and let them
Oh,
out of the
wow.
franchise.
Wow.
So if I had to start over again, knowing what I know now and the processes and the marketing strategies that we've developed, then I guarantee it would be a lot faster of a learning curve, probably
Yeah.
like 1 or 2 years
Yeah.
versus 7 or 8,
Yeah. But I think
So
that's part of it too, right? Like you have to go through like some of those learning curves. Like you can't just right, you can't just fast forward and know everything that you know from the beginning,
right.
right? Unless you have like, maybe it's like those relationships that you have with other moving companies and stuff, and you just
Mm,
fast track some of that. Um, but it is, yeah, I think that's like, that's I think people, they in today's society, like we want things now and fast, and running a business, starting a business takes a long time, right?
mhm.
In like 7 to 8 years, it's probably what most businesses take before they really have a grasp on like what they're doing. And some of them don't even stick around for that long.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was like some crazy percent, 90% or something, don't make it past 5 years that
Yeah.
start out, or
Of
maybe
moving
might
of
be
moving
95%.
companies,
Just businesses in
business in general.
general. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, moving too. I mean, think about moving. It's a low barrier to entry to get started,
Yeah.
but it's a very high barrier to entry to succeed in it, because there's so many movers, I guess you could say, that work for another company. They think, oh, I know that I've mastered this moving
Mm.
piece of it. They know
Mhm.
how to move furniture, they know how to pack
Mhm.
a truck, pack a box, but that's totally different from running the business.
Mhm.
So they don't understand delegation, they don't understand financial reports and KPIs, and
Mhm.
they don't understand how to set up marketing formulas that bring trackable success. So you know where to put your marketing dollars, and
Mhm.
how to hire and how to train people, and all the things that sales, all the things that go into running a successful business. And a lot of them, because it's such a low barrier to entry, and they were movers,
Yeah.
you know, they maybe didn't go to college. Not that you have to go to college to figure that stuff out, but they don't understand the value of reading the books and
Yeah.
listening to the podcasts and seeking out that mentorship. And so,
Mhm.
there's a lot of companies that stay very small if they do make it to that 5 years, because they don't know how to scale, or they're afraid of risk, or they just don't want to, because they think they have to. The only way to do something right is to do it themselves.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that to have a well run moving company, there's a very high barrier there.
Mhm.
But anybody can theoretically get started with $600 in a pickup truck, like
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll see who scales that from
Yep.
there.
And last that long. If there's one thing that you could go back, like from what you know now, like one thing that would have helped you in the beginning, like what would that be?
Definitely seeking out mentorship,
Mentorship.
like from people that had already been there.
Mm.
That would have been the fastest shortcut to success.
Mhm.
I fought that for a long time. I was young and had an ego that I thought
Mm.
I didn't need that help. But that's what I'm exactly what I'm doing with the franchise now. Like
Mhm.
I'm trying to talk to as many franchisors as I can, and join the organizations, and just immerse myself in that industry. I think I fought for a long time. Like I didn't want to be like a traditional moving company. I think I wanted to, do something cool or clever and
Yeah.
make the Uber of moving or something like that. And I just, I didn't embrace like the industry, I guess. I thought I could do it better than what they'd done in the past. But what I failed to realize is that I could do it better, but I needed to learn the fundamentals first,
Mm.
and then I could
Mm.
make that decision on what I think is going to work better, instead of
Mhm.
trying to reinvent the wheel right out the gate. So,
Mhm.
with the franchising business, I mean, that's a whole other industry, and I'm trying not to take 7 or 8 years to figure that out. I'm hoping to seek out some mentorship to be able to expedite that learning curve fairly quickly.
Yeah. So what led you into starting a franchise, and like what is that journey? It's been what you said, a year that you've started the
About a
franchise?
year, yeah,
Yeah.
since we launched our franchise disclosure document. I really didn't pursue it much for the first several months.
Yeah.
A, because I was kind of scared and didn't know where to start with it, and B, we were just growing like crazy with our existing locations.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to sell off our Gainesville location as a franchise, and it took some time to find that buyer. But that was kind of what the first thing I wanted to do was, so I could take that off my plate and
Okay.
really focus more on just the franchise piece of things. But yeah, it's been about a year, and I'm sorry, what was the
Like
question?
what has that process been like for you? Like learning and kind of starting a franchise?
Oh yeah, well, I knew I wanted to do that like from day one, but as
Okay.
I started to learn about it, I learned a lot about the pros and cons of franchising,
Yeah.
and what I really liked about it, and having run two locations simultaneously, is running a successful moving company, I think you kind of need an ownership presence in the community that you're serving. And with franchising, the locations are independently owned
Mhm.
because it's just so much word of mouth. It's so much just kind of having your finger on the pulse of like what that climate looks like what kind of
Mhm.
marketing might work in this area.
Mhm.
Like for example, we kind of stumbled across the MJ morning show. We are and he endorses us on his morning show on 1047. And like I've tried radio in the past on music formats and that never worked, but I just had this like feeling about MJ. He came back on the air a few years ago, started posting all these billboards. I'd been listening to him since like the 90s when I was down in Venice as a
Mhm.
kid. And I was like, you know what? Like he's got a pretty strong listener base. Like let's see how this works, and it worked really well. But
Mhm.
I only would have known that because I'm in the community. I'm immersed in the community,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and then that's what I think it's gonna require for you know to run a successful other branch. Like you need that ownership presence. You need somebody who's wanting to become a pillar of their community, who
Mhm.
understands their market, who understands the people in their market, and the lay of the land. Where are the neighborhoods we want to spend time in,
Mhm.
and not waste money. You could have an MBA and do all the statistical analysis in the world, but there's something intangible about like living in the market that you're
Yeah.
serving. So that's why I'm really drawn to franchising. And I mean, it obviously it does come with its cons because you've got, somebody you really can't fire, if there's a franchisee that's
Oh, sure.
not great. So the vetting process is super important to find the right buyer for that market
Yeah.
because it's
That's
not
your
like a
brand, right?
manager that you're
Yeah.
sending over there. Yeah, it's an
Mhm.
owner,
Mhm.
and they're making a 10-year commitment when they sign that dotted line. So
Mhm.
and if they fail, then it's going to look really bad for selling more franchises because part of what sells franchises is people being able to call the other franchisees and see how their experience is. So if they're
Sure.
struggling and if they fail, it's going to be tough. So there's definitely some cons to franchising, and these owners are likely, once we have more of them, going to want direct line to me. So uh, I'll have to, I've heard from other people in franchising that it's like, you're constantly talking to them. They're like your children
Mhm.
almost
Yeah.
because they need more support. Or they have all these questions, or they're having trouble with something, or they want to bounce ideas. And sometimes, they're entrepreneurs, so like they might want to do things their way, and you
Mhm.
might not agree with how they want to do it. And so you have to have some compliance there. But
Mhm.
ultimately, if we vet the right people and we click, we connect with the people that share our vision and our values, I think it'll be the best way to scale because of that ownership presence and that ownership mentality in the
Yeah.
different markets.
Yeah, that's cool. What for someone who's looking to start a business, right? Whether looking at a moving company or not, but you know, whether they start a business on their own, like if they're opening up their own restaurant or if they want to, get into a moving company, what's the what do you see the benefits of starting with a franchise versus just starting from scratch?
Yeah. Well, I like to tell the franchisee prospects that I spent 8 years making mistakes so that you don't have to.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a benefit of going with a franchise, whether you go in moving or food or whatever,
Mhm.
real estate.
Mhm.
You've got a formula, you've got a recipe to follow that works, and you can see how well it works by seeing the performance of the other locations, whether they're corporate or franchise based, and that's included in the franchise disclosure documents. So I mean that I think is a huge benefit of doing a franchise. And then you have brand leverage and more purchasing power with a franchise.
Mhm.
So you can get more national accounts. You can negotiate cost of materials or trucks or insurance or marketing services. You can get more brand leverage with your name. The bigger your franchise grows, the more people know who you are.
Mhm.
So you don't have to make a name for yourself and spend all the money in branding. I don't suggest somebody going and starting a business from scratch spends much time worried about branding,
Right.
because names don't make businesses; businesses make names. So they should build their brand based off of other trackable marketing avenues, and then eventually you have that. But with franchising, you kind of already have that name presence, and you can still do all the other stuff too that doesn't necessarily need to center around the name, but But that helps, I think, with the internet today, with SEO, search engine optimization,
Mhm.
website management. I think being a part of a bigger organization helps your web authority,
Mhm.
because Google's looking at how long the website's been up, the content that's been put out over the years, how fresh it is. How many users are going to it, all that stuff, how many people click on it when it's searched for. So, starting off like that takes years to build up.
Yeah.
So it's tough to get the search engine ranking on your own, because you have to spend really hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of several years building that really well done website, and getting that. So and when you open up another location, there'll still be a little bit of time before that gets some traction, but it'll be a lot quicker than if you try to do it on your own. So that's another big reason that it makes sense to franchise a business. But for somebody going off on their own and they have an ego and they don't want to use somebody else's name and they want to make their own name,
Yeah.
I mean, that was me. I get it.
Yep.
More power to you, and you just got to have some thick skin and be prepared to fail a lot
Yep.
and learn some hard lessons. And but if you have the will, then there's a way.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, you
uh,
just
you
gotta
know,
stick with it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, business ownership, whether you're franchising or doing it on your own, it's not for everybody.
Right.
You're gonna deal with upset customers. You're gonna deal with upset employees. You're gonna deal with competitors trashing you on the internet. You're gonna have some scary times with cash flow.
Mhm.
You might have a truck that gets into an accident. What do you do?
Mhm.
So there's definitely a lot of thick skin needed to be an entrepreneur in any form. So
Mhm.
that's yeah, it takes the right kind of person.
Yeah, and I like the idea of the franchise, especially for someone who doesn't have any business background or any business experience, like running a business, um, because it's all laid out there for you. Like you
Hmm.
mentioned, like you have everything you need to run and operate that business. All the processes and branding, all that stuff is there. You just gotta follow the steps, and you can be successful.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kinda cliche, but the old franchise adage is go into business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Mm.
So, like, you still are the 100% owner. You
Mhm.
pay a royalty, which is basically like a sales tax.
Mhm.
And other than that, like, you have the freedom to grow. I mean, your success ultimately rides on your
Mhm.
ability to execute. I mean, we can lead a horse to water and lay out the exact recipe for them, but it's up to them to follow it, and then it's up to them to go above that.
Mhm.
They might discover things on their own that are working out really well. I want it to be kind of a collaborative effort. I want that mastermind effect once we
Mhm.
have several owners that are crushing it to be able to come together and on a regular basis and talk to each other and say, hey, like, I just discovered this new marketing thing that's working out really well. You guys might want to try it. Or
Mhm.
this new approach to training or hiring, like, it's working for us, like, try this. So like
Mhm.
I do want that. I want to be a little flexible in some of the stuff. I think, like, franchisee invented the fillet of fish at McDonald's, and it's been very successful for them. So
Yeah.
I don't want it to be too super stringent. There's definitely some policies and some standards that we need them to be at, but I want to encourage people to be entrepreneurial and to scale and to own their entire city. We call it our hometown titan or hometown dominator strategy. We have big territories because we want you to own your entire city. We don't want you to have to be competing against somebody in the same organization across
Mhm.
town. So we want you to become a pillar of your community and just dominate your city's moving market.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, so I wanna wrap up with this. Do you live in the Tampa Bay area now?
Yeah, I live in
Okay.
St. Pete now.
Okay. So when you're not running the business and worry about the franchisees and all that stuff, what do you like to do for fun? Like, if you had a favorite local restaurant to go to or park, like, where are you going?
Yeah, for sure. So I just got a boat about a month ago.
There you
So
go. Yeah.
boating has been my most recent hobby.
Yeah.
I'm also training for an Ironman in the fall.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so I'm going to be pretty active the next several months with that.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the probably main things right now. I actually play competitive wiffle ball down in Sarasota.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I actually just invested in the league. It's called the Sarasota Wiffle League.
Okay.
It's like adult competitive wiffle ball.
Yeah.
We got a tournament tomorrow, actually. So
Nice.
that's a lot of fun. And I've got a dog, so taking him for walks and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
For the boat, where's your favorite place to go on the boat?
So I keep it at I live in the Cove at Loggerhead Marina
Okay.
in South St. Pete, and so I keep it there. So we kind of stick around that area, but like Bunce's Pass is nearby.
Yeah.
I guess Wheaton Isle is not too far. We haven't taken it there yet, but
Okay.
I've been
Yeah.
there. John's Pass,
Mhm.
there's several restaurants around that you can dock it
Yeah.
at. Tiki Ducks, places over at Pass Grill,
Mhm.
place over by John's Pass. So yeah, just cruise around, have a fun day at the sandbar. I haven't taken it offshore fishing yet, but
Okay.
eventually that'll probably happen. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Build up a little bit of experience first. Like,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yep.
Very cool. Well, Wade, I appreciate you being on the podcast today. Appreciate you being here. And where can people what's your website and socials that people can reach out to you at?
Yeah. So twocollegebrothers.com with the number two. You two college brothers underscore moving on Instagram. You can follow us there.
Mhm.
You can follow me at Wade Swikle on Instagram, WADESWIKLE. Check out the podcast, Grow Your Moving Company
Yeah.
podcast. If you own a moving company and you're listening to this, and check out our retreats if you're interested in something there. We'll be hosting one in September, and if there's any local moving companies that are listening, then be happy to have you over there as well. So
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thanks for being here.
yeah, thank you for having me. This was awesome.